The last time my son called me, I was ironing a shirt that didn't need ironing. That was March 2011. He died 4 days later, 58 years old. His heart just quit on him the way things quit when you've pushed them too long without maintenance. And I was standing at that ironing board, pressing a collar that was already pressed, because I didn't know what else to do with my hands, and I didn't pick up the phone. I heard it ring. I knew it was him. I let it go to the machine. I'm not going to tell you I had a reason. I had a habit. That's different. And most of what I'm going to tell you today is about the difference between a reason and a habit, because I spent the better part of 70 years calling my habits reasons. And I only figured out what I'd been doing about 3 years after there was nobody left to do it to. I am 96 years old. My left hand has 2 fingers that won't straighten all the way, pressed flat on a steam iron for 3 decades, and they just gave up on opening. I notice them now when I set my hand on the table. I've been noticing them since about 1987, and I've never once done anything about it. That's not a metaphor. That's just what happens when you ignore a thing long enough. I'm not going to tell you I have 8 lessons. I'm going to tell you I made one mistake for 70 years, and that one mistake had 8 faces. You'll recognize them. That's the part I can promise you. I grew up in Gadsden, Alabama, youngest of 5. My mother worked. My father worked. Nobody sat around explaining things to anybody. You watched, you figured it out, you kept moving. That was the whole of the education. I started at the laundry at 22, the year after I married Eugene. The facility processed linens for 3 hospitals and 2 hotel chains. Steam, press, fold, stack, repeat. 6 days a week, the floor hot enough in July that your shoes went soft. I was good at it. Fast hands. I could press a fitted sheet in 40 seconds flat when I got going, and I knew the difference between a cotton that wanted heavy heat and a polyblend that'd scorch if you looked at it wrong. I stayed 31 years. Not because I loved it, because I was good at it, and being good at something felt close enough to mattering. Eugene left in 1964. Not a fight, not another woman. He just diminished. Like a sound getting quieter until you can't tell if it stopped or you just stopped hearing it. The boys were 9 and 6. I kept moving. What else was there? I'll come back to Eugene. But first you need to understand what I was doing every day for the next 3 decades, because it's the same thing, dressed different. The mistake wasn't working too hard. Everybody says that. Worked too hard, didn't make time, should have slowed down. That's the easy version that lets you feel like the problem was circumstance. The real mistake was simpler and uglier. I learned early that if I was useful, I was safe. If I was needed, I stayed. If I kept my hands moving, nobody looked at me too hard or expected too much or got close enough to leave properly. That was the thing I built my life around. Not love, not even family, usefulness. And I got so skilled at it that for 70 years I confused the two. That's the route. Everything else is just the same route going in different directions. The first direction is the one most of you are doing right now. You are waiting until you finish something to be present somewhere. I did this from the time my boys were small. I was always finishing the next thing. The dishes from dinner, the ironing, the neighbor's hem I'd said I'd fix. One of my sons, the older one, Thomas, used to stand in the kitchen doorway and just watch me work, not asking for anything, just watching. I figured he was bored. I figured he'd go find something else to do. He was 47 before he told me he used to stand there hoping I'd stop and notice him. I told him I noticed. He said, "Mom, noticing and stopping are different." I was 73 when he said that to me. I sat with it for a week, and then I put it somewhere I didn't have to look at it. That's the second direction the mistake goes, but I'm not there yet. Some of you are doing exactly what I did, right now, today. There is a person in your house who is standing in a doorway. Stop finishing the thing. The thing will keep. Second direction. I was good at storing things I didn't want to think about. Not suppressing. I knew they were there. I just got skilled at choosing when to open the drawer and when to walk past it. Eugene leaving. My mother dying before we'd fixed what needed fixing between us. The time I said something to my younger son, Dale, that I've never repeated to another person and never will. I walked past all of it for years, some of it for decades. My left hand rests flat on the table, and those two fingers sit bent, and I notice them the same way I notice those things, aware, unmoved, moving on. The problem with a packed drawer is that eventually you can't open the kitchen at all. Everything seizes up. You start moving around the house in a way that avoids certain rooms. Then you're living in the hallway. Then you're living in the front doorway, technically inside, but mostly outside, just so nothing falls on you when you open a door wrong. That's not a metaphor either. That's what I was doing by the time I was 80. I'd gotten so good at not opening that I'd stopped opening anything. Third direction. You are doing things for people so they won't be able to leave. I know that sounds like a different thing. It isn't. Every birthday remembered. Every favor done before it was asked. Every need anticipated. I ran my household the way I ran that press line. Efficient, consistent, ahead of schedule. If someone needed something done, I'd have already done it. My neighbor Gloria, this was back in the 70s, she used to say, "Doris, you make everybody feel guilty for needing anything." I thought she was wrong. I thought she was jealous, maybe. I didn't speak to her for 2 months. She wasn't wrong. The thing I know now that I didn't know then is that doing everything for someone isn't the same as loving them. It can be the opposite. It can be a way of keeping yourself so busy with their needs that you don't have to sit still long enough to actually feel anything toward them. I was taking care of people the way I worked the press line. Fast, efficient, chest never quite open. That is a very convincing imitation of love. For decades. Even the people you're doing it to can't tell the difference until they're grown and sitting across from a therapist they haven't told you about. The journalist who spent 2 days with Doris in the spring of this year noted that she spoke about her sons without obvious grief. Not because she didn't have it, but because she'd been storing it in the same drawer for 13 years. When she paused between certain sentences, her left hand would drift to the table edge and settle flat, the two bent fingers pressing against the wood like they were trying to straighten themselves by force. Fourth direction. You are not saying the thing you mean to say because you are waiting for conditions to be right. I had a list, not a written list, but a list, of things I was going to say to my mother, to Eugene, to Thomas, to Dale. Good things mostly. True things. Things I meant. I was waiting until the moment was right, until I wasn't tired, until things were less complicated, until the next time I saw them and the light was better somehow. My mother died in 1979. Eugene died in 1998. I didn't speak to Eugene in the last decade of his life, not a fight, just distance that had been comfortable so long it became permanent. Thomas died in 2011. Dale died in 2019. The list is still in my head. It doesn't go anywhere. You think you have time? You don't. But not for the reason you think. It's not just that people die. It's that the moment you're waiting for doesn't exist. It was never a real moment. It was a postponement that got dressed up as patience. Say the thing this week. It doesn't need the right conditions. It needs to get said. Fifth direction. You are letting busyness stand in for a personality. This one is harder to see in yourself than the others. I was busy my entire adult life. I was so consistently, thoroughly, productively busy that for years I thought that was who I was. A busy person, a capable person, a woman who got things done. I was 68 before I sat in a quiet room for 20 minutes with nothing to do and didn't reach for something. First time in my memory. My hands went to the armrests of the chair and stayed there, and I sat with a feeling like standing on a floor that might not hold. Empty, not peaceful. Empty. That was the first time I understood that I had been using activity the way some people use drinking. Not to feel good, to not feel. I had a whole life in that quiet room, and I'd never introduced myself to it. Some of you are 45 or 55 or 65, and you have not sat in a quiet room yet. I'm telling you, do it before the quiet room comes for you, because it comes. And if you haven't practiced it, it doesn't feel like rest. Sixth direction. You are measuring love by what people do and not by what they said once when their guard was down. My younger son, Dale, he was not an easy man to love, and he knew it. Difficult, contrary, could argue the hinge off a door about nothing. But there was an afternoon in 1994, he was visiting. We were sitting on the back step. I remember it was October, cool enough that I had my cardigan. And he said, out of nowhere, "I think you worked yourself half to death trying to hold this family together, and none of us ever told you we knew." I said something dismissive. I don't remember what. I walked inside and finished dinner. I've thought about that October afternoon probably 500 times since he died. All the things I measured wrong. All the times I looked for proof in the doing when it was sitting right there in a sentence that was never going to come again. Seventh direction. You are waiting for someone to apologize before you let a thing go. Eugene owed me an apology. He knew it. I knew it. He was too small a man to give it, and I was too proud a woman to stop needing it. I waited 34 years. He died without giving it. What I waited for never came. What I gave away while I waited was everything else. I'm not telling you forgiveness is free or simple or something you owe anyone. I'm telling you that waiting for someone to hand you the key to your own chest is a losing proposition. And I know that because I have been locked up since 1964, waiting for a man who died in 1998 and never once looked back. Let me be plain. I am not sorry I was angry. The anger was correct. What I'm sorry for is that I let it take up a room in the house and then let it expand until it was renting out all the others. Eighth direction. This is the last one. It comes last because it is the root of the root, and I almost didn't say it. You are not letting yourself be known, not just loved. Known. I was a useful woman for 70 years. I was competent and capable and reliable and steady. I kept things running. I showed up. I folded the linens and raised the boys and fixed the neighbor's hem and showed up at the funerals and brought the food, and I did not break down in front of anyone because that was not what I was built to do. And I am 96 years old, and my hands are on this table, my left hand with these two bent fingers that never straightened. And I have been alive for 96 years, and I am not certain a single person has ever known me. Not because they didn't care, because I never gave them anything to know. I kept the useful parts out front and the rest in the drawer for 70 years, until the drawer was all that was left. You're allowed to be known, even now, even at 75, even at 80, even if you've spent your whole life making sure you weren't. It's not too late to let someone see the bent fingers. The one mistake was this. I learned as a girl that useful people stay, and I spent 70 years making sure I was useful to everyone and unknown to anyone. And that single decision, made before I had the words to call it a decision, grew 8 different arms and touched everything. I ironed a shirt that didn't need ironing instead of picking up the phone. That wasn't unusual. That was Tuesday. My left hand rests on the table. The 2 fingers press flat. They have been pressing flat for nearly 40 years. I'm not telling you this to make you sad. I'm telling you this because the shirt is still on the hanger, and the phone is still in your pocket, and you are not 96 yet. Stop ironing.